instrumental, you know what I'm saying, and everything else speaks for itself. Once you tell somebody, you know, how powerful their mind is, and they think about it, then they start to utilize it.
The maker, the owner, soul controller. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 777 from JFK to the cosmos. We 30,000 miles above everybody's head. So please keep your seatbelts buckled, adjust your seats to its upright position. Pay dues to a game clean bankrupt, standing on quicksand handcuff. 10 bows got man scuffs, war scars that you can't trust. Speak from experience, mouth shut but you hearing this. Never paid clearances, now we getting paid for appearances. Can't die for the truth when you live in a lie. Switch sides in the blink of an eye. Wolf clothes be the disguise for sheep trying to fleece you and see your demise. But we ripstop, Kevlar, Gore-Tex, camouflage, Carhartt, war vets. Never play offense. My new concept, no nonsense. Stay true, all praise due to Jesus. Change the game single-handed like case 2. To do the right thing, it takes two. So harness the God inside of you and break.
And they realize, you know, regardless where you from, you know, it's where you at. Everything else is material, you know what I'm saying? As long as they got their physical form in their mind, whatever they want to happen can happen.
The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet, his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly, uses his ears for the good to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian, he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living stepping in score, Sunya is Allah, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. And we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media. Every intrigue will have its own show. Every incredible thought will have its own episode. And every timeless insight will be archived. Woo! Yeah, man, it feels like forever since my last show, man. And we're back here building on what? Building on the hip-hop writer element. And I got a special one today. I got this new work sent to me today, right before I was leaving to the studio tonight. I got the new shipment of One World magazine, right? Hip hop from the underground up, you know. Although I tell Caesar and stuff, don't let it go all the way up though. If I could just leave it where it is, from the underground. But it's from the underground up. One World magazine. It's a magazine that's made in the West Coast, but really includes all the genres, all the sub elements, all the I'm using terrible words here, you know. So using all of the styles of hip-hop from the West Coast, East Coast, Midwest. In fact, I haven't seen a magazine like this in print, actually in print, that is publishing so many reviews and stuff. And, you know, I think the review is the heart of what makes a hip-hop writer, their thoughts on the actual music. It's why most of the elevations of what I was trying to do and what I've been doing as a hip-hop writer since 1995. I started in 1994. But since 95, I've been making this an element, putting science on music surrounded by art. So making an artistic, poetic prose to surround and deliver the science on music on whatever works are being talked about or whatever individual artists are being talked about. So it becomes art and science on music. And One World, one of the few print publications that allows me to have that word count, that allows me to have that forum to express all of my thoughts and ideas, and it gives me a nice reign. I want to give a shout out to the EIC editor-in-chief, Caesar. We're definitely going to build more with the brother. I have to because he's doing some good work. This second issue looks even better than the first. And of course, my brother Paragon, who helps design it. He designs PremierHipHop.com with me, where all of my pieces are. The majority, 96-7% of all of my pieces this decade, which is numbering almost 300, are in PremierHipHop.com. So that's Premier with an E, hip hop, no dashes, PremierHipHop.com. So we should, when you go on the web, we might be we're switching servers and all that stuff, we're upgrading. So it might be off a couple of days and stuff, but this is the days where you pick up this One World issue. In the first one, I did a re-interview, like covering the careers of individuals is great because when you have a rapport with an artist, you get to go back and build with them about different things than just like, hey, when's your next album out? What are you doing here? And I've already built with Power Rule. So when I got to build with Prince Power Rule for this for this issue last year, the one with the Kendrick Lamar cover, I got to talk about other things besides the Anomaly LP that he re-released again. What I consider one of the great comeback albums of all time, because the Prince Power Rule, for those that don't know, is the first Latino. So he's Puerto Rican, he's Boricua. But technically, if you want that technical trivia, he's the first Latino to release a solo album. He predates Mellow Man, Ace, all those people. And he released it in 1990. But he always felt like he didn't give it his all because he was surrounded by Large Professor. He was surrounded by Psycho Les, surrounded by so many greats, Busta Rhymes, all of them. And they appeared on the debut album. But he didn't get the best out of it. And coming back with the Anomaly LP in 2016 when they brought him back in the game. He talks about the famous visit with when he came home one day from his regular job. Large Professor, Psycho Les, and Lord Finesse, right? They were all waiting for him. So when those three legends are there, you do work when those legends are there. And the Anomaly LP came about, one of the best LPs of 2016. It was upgraded for 2017, so that's out there. And I also got to interview and build with Razkaz really quickly, you know what I mean? And we built on the JMO gang, you know what I mean? And that's with him and another MCL Gant and J57 of Brown Bag All Stars producing. It was a good EP, one of the better EPs this year. It's funny, 2017 had a ton of EPs. This year, everybody with EPs is calling this shit LP. So now there's not that many EPs out there. So JMO Gang, by default, has one of the best EPs out there. And I got to build with him. That build is actually before their EP ever came out, before I even heard anything but just the first song. But now they got the new one. And I'll tell you something, though. They got, oh, shit, look at you dirty people on the camera, though. You're looking at the wrong cover. You're looking at the wrong cover. I thought you was looking at me. And you're looking at this here, Juicy Jess, though. Juicy Jess. I don't know what type of music she does, though, but it probably has a lot of clap snares on it. I'm sure it has clap snares and deep bass line filters, right? If you're into that, you know what I mean? I'll tell you, unless you got your own Juicy Jess at home, then you don't need the magazine, though. But if you might need the magazine, I feel like a total perv, though, holding the magazine like this, though. You know what I mean? I'm not that kind of guy, you know what I mean? But I got a double fold spread. I didn't want to do the typical article, so what I did was my time with DJ Toshi at Classic Storm Radio hosting his podcast, I decided to kind of add on an experience about all my journey going back into radio, you know what I mean? And my journey back into radio begins with a special brother. I'm gonna leave him like he is, a vandal unknown, but he's the one that really pushed me back into radio, where I really started taking it seriously. And then at the Vandal Hour, doing segments for PremierHipHop.com, and I did like a little PremierHipHop.com show, and that's really like a precursor to this show, But I started to do regularly Classic Storm Radio, and we'd have guests and stuff. And these weren't guests that I picked. These were guests that he picked. You know, not throwing darts, you know, because I'm not throwing, it sounds like an underhanded dart. But it's not the I didn't get to pick anything. So it was a good exercise because certain guys that I thought were okay, I had to dig deeper to see how good they were, what they really had to offer, and it expanded my ability as a journalist. And to go back into journalism this way of broadcasting, because my broadcasting career begins in 1995, doing radio at CUNY Baruch College Radio, 590 AM, where the wavelength was so small though that it only took the 14th floor in the 26th Street building, 360 Park Avenue South. They have a whole Baruch College has a whole campus now. I was there when it was gutter and shit, so they were spread out through leased buildings and floors. And then I started to do Hunter College Radio, and then I went to BAI and did news. I did news with Santiago Nieves and Latino Journal. And I kind of left radio there. I didn't do much radio. I did lots of lectures on hip-hop. I did lots of speaking. And, of course, teaching my course at a law school in Mecca the last 18 years. You get used to speaking in front of crowds, along with the other lectures. But going back into radio, I wanted to write something special about Classic Storm Radio. So I wrote Builds One World Over, a hip-hop writer's notes interviewing greats on Classic Storm Radio. You know, and some of this includes this year, and it actually goes through a lot of special stuff and a lot of emotional stuff too, because some of these people are family that I didn't get to meet for years in the physical until I met them, and I put those stories in here. And check it out, man, because it's a strong piece. I got Razkaz, pictures of Razkaz here, that show. The show with Planet Asia and South Kills was in the studio for that one. And actually one of Planet Asia's videos for one of his latest albums this year. He has 2 albums this year. I'm in that video too. Me and Toshi come out in that video. That was actually the session. And then a picture with Bronze Nazareth, June Mega, and Roll Blunt of the Detroit's The Wiseman. You know what I mean? And that's all family. So it was a great piece, and I wanted to pay homage to the family with that. You know what I mean? And I even got to put, some style in there, you know, before I started it, though. I'm going to read you some shit here, right? I said here, Sunyas Allah, performed essays, Allah's captured excellence. It's really all peace, because we're still in the war. You see some words that'll heal, fit, and feel ill in them, and then you address them. A speech that turns coverage into a canvas. Art from a counterculture's barracks. Creations on creations. Spiritual cycles all air-like. The one they call the ever-emerging Son of Man. Son is all hearing. That's me, Sunyas, all hearing, you know? And I proceed to go in there, give a little introduction about radio and all that, you know, because it's stuff that we don't really know about, you know, and these are things that we haven't really checked out. But shout out to Caesar again, editor-in-chief. He's making a great work, and I look forward to building with him on the next issues and stuff. That was a great one. By the way, the One World magazine, you can find that on almost all the newsstands in New York City and stuff. You'd be surprised. And they also have the website. Look up One World on the internet. You know, look up One World on the internet, because they're there, you know. I got to get their website. Yeah, it's One World. One as in the number one, and write worldmag.com. So it's one, that's the number, oneworldmag.com. And then you'll see all the information about how to download, because they're also going to have it available digitally. So you can just download it digitally, you know. So we're talking about this. By the way, upcoming episode, this is real important. Upcoming episode, I intend probably the next episode, I'm going to have my brother Infinite Mind, one of my greatest students in the knowledge of self, who is an incredible MC, but also, you know, we learn Kung Fu at the same time. You know, I taught him, and then he just went another realm with it and studied in China and all of that. And he's back in the States, you know what I mean? He was in Miami, now he's back he's gonna be back in New York, so I'm gonna build with him soon. He should be in a broadcast. And he's also been an educator in the school system for 11 years in the New Jersey school system. So I have a big build on LeBron and his I Promise school, because some things are not as it seems. Some credit is overgiven, or given to an extreme. Sometime this I Promise School is also being used as a comparison to prove that LeBron is the GOAT. And that's silly talk. Also used to take jabs at Michael Jordan, or which actually, if you do your damn research, says a lot different. You know what I mean? So this isn't a regular podcast, though. We actually fucking do the knowledge. Do the knowledge, 5% term. It means that we actually check and research shit. Because it's not important that we just know about stuff or hear about stuff. It's important that we know that it's true and that we actually have some insight on it. So that's why we say knowledge, and then we use it. That's wisdom. And then we have an insight to it that is profound, that is a revelation of purpose. And that's what we call an understanding of. So that's what we're going to give you on the LeBron School, because there's a lot of builds to it, how we deal with education of our black and brown children. And it could be huge, but already there's a lot to learn, though, from this whole just announcement of LeBron's I Promise School. So on another show, we're going to do that. You know, we'll merge my experience as an educator, a very unorthodox educator, along with my brother Infinite Mind, who is an incredible MC and also not only a master educator, but also a master martial artist, though. You know what I mean? And so it's a lot to talk about. You know, again, this show, I wanna skip along to a fun segment here. We got a new segment here because these things collect, man. And I told the God, like, it's been like a week or so that we haven't been on air. So this segment mutated. Like, it just started growing, though, you know? And not growing, because things can mutate. Like, you know, I'm making kombucha at home. My earth is making kombucha at home, and that SCOBY multiplies, and it becomes a living thing. Not like a SCOBY. I mean it like a piece of dirty shit. You know, like something that's mutating that's not good. You know, so this is the new segment called the Who Gives a Fuck segment. Because I want to keep reminding you what we're here talking about. And, you know, in a lot of episodes, we've been talking about issues. We've had to talk about lots of important issues. And we have not even gotten to the core of what I love to just talk about. Sit down and talk about songs, old songs, new songs, and how they merge together. We're still not there yet, even though I'm talking to artists and talking to them about their particular songs, right? But the Who Gives a Fuck segment has multiplied, and we have, I think, we got like 4 things on this thing. And it just gives you, this segment is to give you a perspective of what this show is not giving a damn about and what we intend not to care about at all, right? So let's go with the first one, right? And we might be a little bit out the box here, might offend you and everything like that. But you can fast forward, though. You don't have to skip everything. You don't have to listen to me the whole way, right? Actually, you know, the brief Who Gives a Fuck. Who gives a fuck if you fast forward, right? But the first Who Gives a Fuck. Kid Capri versus Flex. Who gives a fuck? It's a whack battle. They both haven't DJ'd at the highest level in a long time. And more importantly, Flex never really did. Okay? You know, this is a DJ that didn't like Protect Your Neck from Wu-Tang when he was given that. That was such a winner. That was such a blatant winner. I was there when we had the cassettes and that was being drifted. And it was such a terrible, such a terrible, you know, choice that, you know, I had to be like, we can never respect this. But look, I think Kid Capri, I was always those kids that never bought Kid Capri mixtapes because I don't want people yelling at me. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't take people yelling at me or yelling through an exclusive. But there's no way that Flex's skills compare to Capri, so it's who gives a shit, right? Also this, on the other side note, one of my biggest pieces in 2005, right, was about Funkmaster Flex's Payola. I wrote it in the Source magazine. We had to stay up all night to fact check it because we didn't want to get sued, right? And when it was published, we actually waited. We actually waited and listened to Flex on the air to see if he would mention us, though, because my editor-in-chief, Daysun, the god Daysun Allah, we was there, right? And he was like, yo, if they say anything about us, we're going to Hot 97 to Rumble and start shit. That shit never happened. The shit was never fact-checked. You know what I mean? Flex never mentioned it on the air. it was completely 100% shown and proven. But here's a thought I've been having, and I'm going to have another show about this in the Media Mutations, which is my favorite all-time segment. I proved that Flex took payola, right? But this is years later in 2018. We have to ask, who was the payoler if he was the payolee? We disrespect and hate the person that takes payola. I'm calling the payolee. But we love the payoler. So when that guy said from Brooklyn, I gave you 9, 10 hot summers, I gave you hot summers, you know, the inventor of the pretty hiccup, Jigga Man, right? No one goes, where did he get that from? You know, it was real exclusive. If I had told you and written about the people that were paying the payola, that would have been I could have been shot and killed for that one. But they didn't want that. They just wanted Flex, though. But number 2 on the Who Gives a Fuck segment, 50 Cent versus Mayweather. Who gives a shit? Mayweather is a master of the ring. He's a master of business. And he should be studied with a level of disconnect from the integrity that he's shown, right? And now 50 Cent, right? I'm going to say this. This is me. This is not anybody else. But 15 years later, and I could still say with even more authority that just as I did in 2003 when I searched through 125th, right, as I was walking to my class, right, God? I was walking to my class, right, and I was like, I got to get that new 50 Cent bootleg, but everybody sold out of the bootleg. Remember everybody sold out of that shit? And I was tight because I'm like, I'm not buying this shit. I'm not buying this shit, though. Somebody better have the bootleg, right? And I got the last guy. Because you remember it was raining that day. It was a Thursday because I didn't do it on Tuesday. And but look, in 2003, we saluted 50 by himself and we let him jingleize gangster rap. All the while, Tragedy Gaddafi was making classic gems continuously throughout the decade. You know, that's why I call the 2000s the Dark Ages. Tragedy Gaddafi had great work after great work. And everybody's like, oh, the king of gangster rap is 50s, this, that. And I'm like, there was no context. There was no umbrella. There was no diversity. So now with Mayweather and 50 Cent, look, 50 Cent is barely holding on, acting in power. He's barely holding on. You know what I mean? There's like, he's one facial expression from turning it into comedy theater. You know what I mean? And it's still enjoyable. So enjoy people in their own realm, but this is a battle that who cares about? It's not in the realm. All right? The third of the 4, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Tekashi 69 beaten. Who gives a shit, though? You know, no one wants to see kids get beaten up. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying this right now to all the listeners, though. Don't beat on the weak and don't beat on the whack. That's an easy battle. It's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? You want to beat on MCs, try the good ones. You know, there's plenty of battle rappers that are huge and gigantic and talented that you could try to beat on. How come nobody tries to beat on Nems? You know, go beat on Nems, right? So he could say, fuck your life, and then beat, you know, like that classic clip of him punching that white boy that does all those scam videos. But here's the thing, right? And this is a side note. One of my brothers admired him for his story, if not his bad music, right? And bad meaning, what I mean by bad is no technical merit, effort of time, or overarching talent. And he even admits that he takes no time to do this. He admitted that, right? His music even isn't even unique to other pop filler, right? So when you admire and respect the story of someone like Tekashi, what you're doing is you're missing one of the crucial filters, the filter of the real, based on talent and skill. The story that he comes from, ghetto nigga, lousy life, put a lot of shit on his face, came up, did songs. That's a story that I've been covering for over 20 years. There's a lot of people like that fit that story. So why can't we respect the people with abnormal talent and skill level that sacrifice the limelight so that they could do that? You know, 2 years ago, we were dissing Bobby Shmurda for dancing on the table for the white man to get a record label, but Tekashi 9 clearly has done that. Clearly is doing that with every single song, but we love his story. Come on, man. There's better stories. This is the same story. And probably the most important, though, the last Who Gives a Fuck story. And again, to the listener, this story, these fucks got added up because I haven't been on the air in a while. The R. Kelly 19 Minutes song. Who gives a fuck? He's a pedophile, though. Okay, he's a pedophile. Okay, so he goes, pedophile, but they were young. I like young girls. Chorus, chorus, chorus. I like young girls. I really felt the young girls. Does he talk about the schools that he used to scope out? Huh? Does he talk about the schools he used to scope out and wait for the kids to come out? Does he talk about that he actually is R. Kelly, a world-level talent and successful star? So when you say anything to a kid, your life, just saying, hi, I'm R. Kelly, is already game. When you speak and you say, hi, my name is R. Kelly, that's game right there. You're already abusing the youth. So you better know your power, though. It's like Mike Tyson, though. He doesn't joke around with people and give you punch taps on the shoulder. If I'm with Mike Tyson, I don't want him to joke with me and punch me in the shoulder like, hey, you got that, Sunez? And punch me in the shoulder. Some niggas can't do shit other niggas do. So fuck his 19-minute song, though. You're better. There's Marvin Gaye, Donny Hathaway, Teddy Pendergrass, Sam Cooke, Al Green. People with fucked up lives, harsh lives, flaws that you could listen to that made classic soul, and they weren't fucking with babies. Okay? Marvin Gaye had a messed up mind, though. His father fucked up his head, and he didn't make fucked up music, and he didn't fuck with kids. So that ends the Who Gives a Fuck segment. Stuff that I hate this segment. I don't want to talk about this segment. I want to talk about music. Now, what I do is a new element. I've been talking about it since 95. It's the hip-hop writer element. We cover the music, but we also create as we cover it. And to properly introduce my guest, I wanted to give something I read. It was something that I wrote inspired when I got my L's as a low life from Rakim, Supreme Shabazz, a.k.a. Rudy Lowe, and when I was named Skillustrator by Thurston. And I made this piece as a short piece, but I called it the Love and Loyalty Anthem, right? And it said, our illness doesn't fit any of these clothes. Our poverty can't fund our ideas. Our shade of blacks and browns deserve fabrics of the whole spectrum, from wealthy pastels to the Warren Greens. We won't wear what you're sewn to us, and we will wreak havoc to reap our own seams. No, we won't dress like oppression's bastard child no more. Our love is beyond measure, and loyalty ain't to be tailored so swiftly. We got next on that old Persian game where warriors practiced battles in play. On grand horses, everyone numbered with 3 others. 4 swung elements. Oh, wait, plus the skillustrating. A canvas posts a verse, a break move, or a break beat, all verbatim documented art on art. And we compete in a game that closed us. The first fields were MGV at SJP, and now all the lands are better suited after million-man rushes. The LO and the Polo, Power Cipher, the Love Cipher, uniforms of priceless warriors and overpriced hells, all emblematic of anthems. We now return what we stole with greater value. So much love and loyalty you couldn't call this family of low tribes anything else but low lives. And while they ride, the horses fly out the rack stables. They save hip-hop song by song, stitch by stitch, element by element. And on that note, I welcome my guest here, who's definitely, to me, when I was mentioning the Tekashi thing, I think he's the polar opposite. He's one of the most technically dexterous MCs in the universe. And he's part of a crew. He's part of a duo of actual real-life brothers from Queens. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm from Brooklyn, and I keep going against you guys. I keep bringing Queens MCs, but I'm losing every week here. I'm losing. And this brother's from Queens. My guest is Solus of Timeless Truth, man. Peace, Solus. Thank you. You know what I mean? It's definitely an honor to have you here. You know what I mean? For the listener, you know what I mean? It was around 2014. I documented some Dominican groups.
Yes,
the
sir.
mythological collections of talentless exploiters that abuse this music. They were the Baina Boys, the Dímelo Dames, the Coño Crew, the Mangu Men, La Malicia, the Baboso Bangers, the Dique Delinquents, the Lochera Caraitos, and them Diache niggas. And they were all overcome easily by a duo of brothers, O Prime 39 and my brother here, Super Bad Solus.
Yes, sir.
I gotta tell you, that piece I wrote for you for Dominican Diner EP was like the most fun I had writing the shit.
That is by far the best piece, the most critical piece, the most descriptive, imaginative piece. And I had to make it a responsibility and a duty to come up here to thank you for that. You know what I mean?
Oh, man, I appreciate
that. That really
that.
resonated with me as a writer, as somebody who tells stories and tries to be as vivid as possible with the talents that I
appreciate
have.
that.
I recognize what you did, man, and still up to this day, I haven't seen nobody come close to a
I
review that
appreciate
way,
that.
man.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you, bro.
I had a lot of fun writing that. And, you know, I live in the Heights now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
And
surrounded.
my kids are Dominicans, so you know what I mean.
Oh,
It's just I
it's
can't.
already, yeah.
Yeah, it's
You
too
immersed.
much. Yeah, I don't even eat Puerto Rican food. You know what I mean? Right? You know, but although I will never call quenepas lemoncillo. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I don't call them canepas, man.
I always pick my favorite word.
Yeah.
I always pick my favorite word.
Yeah.
So I do call that rapao at the bottom. I don't
con.
call it pegao. I call it con
pegao, yeah, con
because
con.
con
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
better. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
pegao's lazy. Yeah, we know it's stuck
like
in there.
stuck to the bottom, yeah.
Duh, we know it's stuck in there.
Yeah.
But yo, I want to go back to go forward, right?
Yes,
and
sir.
and
Yep.
the origins of timeless truth, the MCing, you know, because we hear your music, we see all this, so it's a kind of music that you make that we like. We listen to immediately and we say like, and these guys are really refined. No, so
Yes,
we
sir.
know that you did it for a long time.
Yes, sir.
But how did you get into this? Because a lot of guys I talk to that are this technically skilled, they were actually not good in the beginning.
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate, man. I started off writing just poetry. You know, in junior high school and high school, I was writing poetry, and I got to give credit to my big brother, Old Prime 39. You know, he was my influence in terms of letting me ride the coattail and understand what hip hop is. You know, so I had the blessing to learn from my elders, and I have a family full of dudes, man, older dudes. So I was kind of like the baby of the bunch, and I got to absorb what they were into, right? So it was merely through exposure to what they were bumping, and I was kind of adjacent to it. Still super young, like I couldn't understand Cuban Links when it came out. I'd be lying, I was 6 years old when Illmatic came out. I'd be lying if I said I was
Right.
bumping that, but I did do my homework. And I pay attention, man, and I study flows, I study patterns, I study words, so it got to a point where, I think it's kind of the era you were talking about, like the early 2000s, 2010s, where it was like, I just wasn't feeling anything, and I found myself digging way deeper back in the past and not finding anything new that was inspiring. So that kind of put the battery in my back, and it's like, yo, if I'm not feeling it, I shouldn't just complain about it. I should try to put my hand at it, and see what I could do about it, So I was never, the complaining type, like, yo, this stuff is whack, but I'm not gonna do anything about it. If I had this, like a different iteration of that skill in poetry, why not give it a shot? And there was a record shop around the way in Corona called All the Right Records. Big shout out to my man Moonshine. He's out in LA right now holding it down. But I was a young buck, man, and every weekend I would go. I would buy my big brother, a vinyl, a 12-inch vinyl. And the record store guy, man, that role that Moonshine played was so important because he was putting me on. He's like, yo, you need to listen to this. Yo, this just dropped. Boom, yo, here's the T-shirt, the promo stickers, and that kind of built an affinity for me with this culture and seeing it and investing in it from an early age. And yeah, man, my brother had these these super janky starter kit Newmark turntables. They were like the purple dogs. I think they were purple turntables that he bought with his summer youth paychecks and everything. and that was my segue in, was buying records for my brother so that he could spin them in the crib. And the flip side would have the instrumentals, and he would let it rock. And I always be shy off to the corner. I see my brother and my cousins rhyming, and I was just formulating, man, like building words and ideas and flows in my mind. And one day he put me on the spot. He's like, yo, you got something? And I let something fly. And he was like, yo, that was actually all right. It wasn't too bad. And from then on, man, I was just writing like a maniac.
Right.
Every day. Mind you, school full-time, work full-time, and still like trying to refine the craft and learn it. And I still feel like I'm in that phase of learning it and trying new things and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
Right.
High school era for me.
By the way, as a side note, he mentioned the SYEP checks. You know, I used to get my
the
summer youth employment program checks, and I used to.
Yo.
There was one summer I used to wonder. I was like, "Yo, what if MOP actually robs me for my summer youth check?" 'Cause remember when it had that line?
Who said it?
Little
Dan's
Fame
or
said.
Fame?
I think it was Little Fame. Rob you for your summer youth check. I was like, "Yo, would it be kind
man.
of dope and
That's
fucked up
devastating, man.
if he robbed me for my summer youth check?"
That's devastating,
Yeah.
bro. But yeah, maybe there's bragging rights.
Yeah, I was like, if I get robbed, I want to be robbed by Lil Fame,
Out
not
of
by
everybody,
some nigga that don't rap and I can't. You know what I mean?
You hear yourself in a song.
Yeah.
But Summer Youth was a
Be like,
blessing,
that
man.
was me. Yeah.
Yeah, we got our working papers as
14,
14-year-olds, and since then, man, like we're blue collar men.
That's right, that's
blue
right.
collar men. Outside of that's just the ethic. That's
Indeed,
how we carry
indeed.
ourselves out.
You know, and let me jump to another origin, because let me tell you something. I didn't, and I keep it real. I had given my whole story. I had written on it and everything. The whole story of being part of the low lives, and I'm one of the low lives that's a low life because of what he's done in hip hop, but also the community is a 5%er and teaching at the school, a law school for 18 years now going.
Wow.
And so I didn't get it by boosting, by having lots of low, you know what I'm saying? And I always say that when I was in the 80s, I had all the other animals. You know what I'm saying? On my polo, you know what I mean? Had all the other animals besides
like
the horse.
Yeah, the Lacoste.
Yeah, I had tigers,
tiger,
bears,
the
whatever it
tiger,
was.
yeah,
Every animal but the horse. But the thing is that one thing about the low lives, I've always dressed based on what I see myself as. You know, so it was always a uniform. You know what I'm saying? So like when I learned martial arts, the whole 2000s, I was wearing kung fu gis. That's it. That's all we wore.
Okay.
If you see any picture of me in 2000s, I got blue, black, white for nice occasions and shit. I wore nothing else and shit because that's all I cared about was kung fu and shit. I had the long hair like a samurai. We didn't care about nothing. But it was one day I was like, man, I'm doing all this work with the low lives, but I wear some low, but and mind you, I'm still the low life that that's why I always say the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, because I deface every American flag because I'm that militant. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, except the one in the Alpine ski jacket. I make note.
You might have to leave
that shit
one.
is really hard to.
I mean, it's baked into it. You can't really do much with it.
Yeah. It's like Fort Knox, so I have to leave it though.
Yeah.
But I put like 1,000 Boricua things around it.
Yo, you crazy,
You know?
kid. That's incredible.
But the way I dress has always been like rooted in that old Bronx tradition. Lots of patches of what you're about and everything.
Right. Identity symbols, right?
Exactly, yeah. And one show that influenced me a lot, right, was there was a low life show at the Highline Ballroom. I think it was had to be 2013. You were on the bill.
Yes, sir. Yep.
You and Timeless Truth were on the bill. I think it was Dallas Penn. He was hosting.
Shout out to my man.
He had the
Dallas.
crazy socks on.
That's my guy. Yeah.
He had two different low socks.
He's the best.
He was dressed like he was a skier without pants.
That's
what
legit. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I'm having the flashback right now. Yep.
Yeah, and he was dynamic as hell, and there was so many characters. Everybody treated me real peace, and I wasn't wearing low. I was wearing Carhartt. Everybody was peace, and I started to do the knowledge, and I was like, yo, there are so many ways of rocking this. And I felt as part of, because I call this decade the invisible renaissance, and I felt, and I still feel absolutely that the styles of dress, the ways of dress are so instrumentally have changed for the better when we look at the best dressed by the low lives. And when I saw you and your brother, I was like, these guys are amazing. Look,
Thank you, bro.
you guys
Thank
had
you.
everything dipped,
Yeah, man.
every single video. And to make note, if you go to your website, the actual promo for each song has you in like it's a modeling photo shoot.
It's a lookbook.
Yeah,
It's a look and listen book. That's what we call
It's
it.
fucking dope.
Thank you, bro.
You know, and a lot of people wear their low and they look like cartoon characters. They look fucked up.
Yeah.
And you were wearing your low like you were wearing Snow Beach and not looking like McDonald's.
Yeah,
you know,
man, dude. There's a science,
like you
man.
escaped out of McDonald's and
Yeah.
shit. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's crucial. And I just want your history with the low lives, how you got down with the low lives, and how that worked out, and everything you was doing.
Yeah. Now, great question, man. So, I think to just harp on one point that you were just hitting, like, there you could have all the gear in the world. If you don't know how to put it together and rock it, then it's whatever. It's meaningless, right? So like that's when me and my brother came up with the idea, the theory of rocket science, where it's like there is a science to how to rock it. There's legitimately a science. You can't just slap all this stuff together. It's, and it's wearing it and rocking it with respect, more than anything. I know that there's pieces I have that people legitimately lost their lives for. So for me to like just throw that on my back and just be ignorant about that fact is just pure ignorance, right? So that's the mindset that we go out rocking the gear with. And, again, coming from a big family of older dudes, I watched my older cousins do the polo, and it was something like through osmosis I kind of picked up and absorbed.
Right, yeah.
And my brother had launched this site called Vintage Gear Addicts in 2005, and it was incredible, man. It was like the first time this culture was digitized, and it was like communities coming together and building and organic. And there's friendships I've built that are still true to this day that happen from online, you know what I mean, which is kind of crazy. And around that time, the site was picking up a lot of buzz, a lot of notoriety. We were also doing the music heavy, and we were working with Thurston heavily as well. And we would go to Thurston's crib in Starlight City.
And that's Thurston Howell the Third.
Thurston Howell the Third.
Big low life general.
Big Vic Low. Yep. The one and only. And he embraced us with open arms. And the ill thing that me and Thirst talk about a lot is that Low Lifes kind of took formation in 1988, and that's the year I was born. So he looks at it as like the cycle continues. Like there's another torchbearer, somebody who gets it, somebody who's gonna add on to the story and not just exploit it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not trying to do what they did. They came up in a very specific way of rocking it, very specific way of obtaining it. I was never a booster either, but it's my responsibility to add on to that chapter and to expose this culture to new people globally now, right? Because we have the internet, we have new platforms to do that. And yeah, man.
You could say that site was a real precursor to people selling vintage items, because they said, wait a minute, this shit actually exists, where some people actually have it.
Yeah, man.
Maybe there's a possibility I could go find it now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and it was bringing people together. Like, I was in Japan not too long ago last year with my wife and my parents. We took them out to Japan just to, like, escape New York for a second. And I got to link up with one of my boys that I knew from the website for, like, 10 years. We'd done deals over the mail, and dude rolled out the red carpet when we got there. It was like, yo, that connection would have never been possible if we didn't use technology to this degree or to this benefit for both of us.
Right. Yeah, and as somebody that was like, yo, I'm rocking no low now. I'm like, okay, I don't have to wear just a whole bunch of American flags.
Nah.
I was like, yo, there's so much diversity in this shit.
Yeah. And there's low lifes who don't wear polo, period.
Exactly.
Shout out to Philo, like, who's all Philo down.
Cool. Yeah, Philo, yeah.
And that's something that Thirst kind of instilled in us when he gave us our L's. He's like, yo, it's about the honor and the integrity, the way you uphold this and the way you extend this narrative, not just like keep it in one place. And that's why Thurston wasn't, standoffish or like, he didn't ever give us like the stiff arm. It was always come through. He taught us how to record on Pro Tools.
Wow.
Like Thirst, man, owe that guy a lot, and I'm super thankful for everything he did for us.
Oh man, that's beautiful. So we have that show, we have the albums. Just a quick run through of these albums. Besides, when we lead up to this Solus debut, I want to talk about some things. So we have the 2 EPs, the Brugali Presidente, the Dominican Diner I mentioned, the Rocket Science he mentioned, and then the Cold Wave album.
Yes, sir.
And these are all great albums. And they've gotten better. I think, like, leading up to this solo album, what's the thing that you learned the most out of all that work there?
Great question. I think, the intention behind the music, like why do this? Like why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of it? What do I want to contribute through the music? And that's something that always stuck with me. And that's honestly embedded in the name Timeless Truth. It was always, we're on a mission to establish something that's going to stand the test of time. So And it's funny, man. Like even the story on getting that name. You know, I was in philosophy class, and one of my professors was going through theories, and I think it was Plato theory, and it was like the timeless truth, and that like hit me. I was like, oh, that's crazy. And yeah, like I just started to notice how like really profound music acts are still alive even when they transition. And the example was James Brown. He had just passed away, right? And I was with my girl at the time, my wife now. And we had a Applebee's or something, like, you know, cheap first dates and stuff. And I remember I'm hearing super bad, you know, I got soul and I'm super bad.
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And that's also how I came up with my name. So James Brown always held a special spot in my heart. But I realized, I'm like, man, this man is 6 feet underground right now. And I'm looking at people's posture and their body language, and everybody's subtly just moving, and like the music got command over them. And I'm like, yo, that's why I want to do it. You know, like 200 years when I'm not here in the physical, I want a kid to find a tape, a CD, an MP3, and be like, yo, this is incredible. It stood the test of time. I get it. You know, it's still relevant.
Yeah, it definitely goes with a line that you had from Wet Cement. Make change through my best intent. Right? All the words I leave behind be my testament. That's why I write my name in the wet cement. Stand my ground for the streets that I represent. You know, when I heard that, as someone that studied a lot of the martial philosophies, the Taoist philosophies, I was like, yo, that's a Buddhist principle, the idea of the intent. So in many of the sects of Buddhism, this idea of intent is that if it's sincere, even if it fails, the sincerity is what counts. So like if I'm trying to save everybody, but I kill mad dudes that should be killed, my intent was
it's
pure.
Still pure, yeah.
So good. Then the thing was acceptable, but you kind of covered that. But you know, before I get into this, there's one more thing I want to ask you about, particularly about this history as far as the tutelage. And we have Thurston Howell, but there's somebody else I wanted to talk about, because on the Cold Wave album, on In Due Time, you have an incredible verse about Sean P.
Thank you, bro.
I loved it.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And it was one of our greatest losses. Such a great brother. He was a great friend. You know what I mean? In the limited time that I knew him personally, he hooked me up with so much stuff that he didn't have to.
That was just P, man.
You know, and he constantly wouldn't let me write about him.
Really?
He wouldn't let me write about him, wouldn't let me interview. He said, no, don't write about me. Write about this dude. And,
wow.
And we would just talk about mathematics or degrees and shit, and we wouldn't talk about that. So we left it like that. And in that song, you talk about the tutelage that he gave you. You know what I mean?
Man,
what was some of that tutelage? Because if we look at his work and then we see your work, right? And of course, your brother's like, oh, Prime. We see such a dexterity, such a mastery of being in the pocket.
Thank you, bro.
Dive back out, go back in whenever you want.
That's what it's about.
You know?
Yeah.
And Sean P is almost like those guys in the pocket that laugh. He can laugh himself out of the pocket.
It's effortless.
Because it's so easy to get back in.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
He's evil. He's like an evil, you know, like,
yeah, he got it.
Dive right back in, you know?
Yep.
Where that, and he also was tough to, tough to challenge, though.
Yeah.
He was very competitive. Because when I built with Illa G, he was very competitive. And so you had to be on your game there. So you guys are learning.
Yeah.
How are you learning, but also hanging on?
Yeah. That was a challenge, man. You know, because Sean was sincerely about this craft. Like Sean would call me, and I pick up, and he wouldn't even say hello. As soon as I pick up and I say hello, he's rapping. He's literally he would call it shadow boxing. Him and I was shadow boxing. He would call me.
That's what you meant on In Due Time, right? Like just call up and rhyme.
Yeah. He would just call me up, and it was either he was rapping or he was saying it's Joe's Pizza. He used to have this Joe's Pizza joke. Like Sean was crazy, wild, funny, but yeah, man, he was very serious about the lyrics and about the delivery of the lyrics. And yeah, man, we would go dart for dart. Just like he would call, and I would have to have something ready. Like, yo, I'm not going to be empty-handed with Sean Price on the phone. Mind you, at that time, I'm a janitor. I'm in college. I'm paying my tuition. I got like a dust mop in my hand, my headphones, Sean Price rapping to me, my brain going crazy. Like, how am I going to respond? Like, so much going on, you know. But back to that blue-collar ethic and that mentality. Sean owned that. Sean lived by that. He lived for this craft. And you know, to the point of timeless music, Sean is still here with us.
Right,
you know?
right.
So
You know, as
Thankful for
far
that,
as funny stuff, when I think of you guys, you two and Sean P, I also think of that Twitter moment
which one is
with
this?
with this
The
whole
cockroach?
thing with the cockroach
Oh.
thing, with the roach thing. And
Yo,
you were telling
son.
him he was a roach or something, and he was coming back. It's
Nah,
just
yo,
funny as hell.
I have to say this while I'm here. I'll give the quick version of the story. It was like a day like today, blazing, scorching hot summer day. We're in Brownsville. We're in Sean's crib, and it's humid as hell. Right? We get to the. He used to have the setup in his room, so we get to the room. He's playing beats, and a giant water bug flies in. This joint was like a foot tall, bro, literally, and he's looking at us to kill this water bug in his crib. And we're like, dude, this is your crib. And his wife gets in on it. She's like, yo, you guys are shook? If our son was here, he would body this. You know, we're like, yo, this is your crib. Like, it was too much for us to.
So
to
like
take
roach
in.
etiquette came in.
Yeah,
though. Like, yo,
we're
those
like
are your
respectful.
roaches.
Yo,
though,
you
yeah.
got this. Yeah. Don't try to impose this roach on us. So yeah, and
Oh,
he would
crazy.
haunt me for years. Like on my birthday, he was he would send me. He would go on Google Translate and in Spanish type out a paragraph from the perspective of the roach, wishing me a happy birthday. Like this was Sean Price, man. Rest in peace, Sean
Oh
P.
man, yeah. Remember the perfection, man. The guy
Yeah.
was so swift. You know?
Yes, sir.
The let's get into this the Soul Controller EP. I'm calling it EP. Everybody calls things albums. I don't know what you want to call it.
I call it a project. I call it a project because it
Oh,
kind
we got a third name here.
This is I'll introduce
Project.
something brand new, man. Or I don't think it's brand new, but
Yeah.
I couldn't define it or box it into something myself. So I was just like, yo, this is a project. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Right. I might defy that when I
It's
write
all
about
good.
it.
It's all good. You
categorize
got
it.
you got it.
But let me tell you, because a lot of your projects you guys like to use one producer on certain projects, like Rocket Science. I forget who you used.
Oh, yeah,
on
it was
that.
authentic.
Yeah, and it had such a fluidity.
He's actually the same producer who did Soul Controller.
Ah, okay. He just changed his name.
Yeah,
Okay.
the dude is he's crazy.
Yeah,
he got
yeah.
multiple identities.
So tell me, now that I know he's the same producer, has that changed along? Like, did the way you work with him change?
Yeah, it did. And again, he's somebody I know for a long time through Polo as well. There was a moment when my little brother was doing a Polo deal with him. That's how I met him. I would chaperone my younger brother to do deals because I didn't want him to get stuck up, you know. And I went uptown to the Heights to meet this dude. Dude is 6'6". I'm like, all right, you know, whatever. I'm there with my brother making sure he's good. This was the MySpace era. He's like, yo, I heard you do music. I do beats. I did this track for De La. You know, we should link up. He sends us some stuff, and it was like, damn, he really got it. You know, like he's ill.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, we built through Polo and just through being good people. You know what I mean? So that's my guy, man, Rich. And Road to Riches is actually dedicated to him. His real name is Rich. Yeah.
So in this project, did he throw you a certain handful of beats and you picked out, or?
Son, that he has more beats than any producer I know. Like, and I'm talking about thousands upon thousands of beats. Like, he lives his life doing the 10,000 hours time over time, right? And he has all the stacks of beats to prove it. And he would just throw me batches, like SoundCloud links with 100 beats in it. And I would go through it, you know, on my way to school at the time, on my way to work, and I would just like pull certain joints to the side. And yeah, I had a few of those beats for like 6 years, bro. And it was just like, now's the time, you know, now's the time for me to touch this track or that one. And, you know, the recording process was different this time. Like, I did the whole project in my crib. You know, I wasn't in a studio. I wasn't paying for studio time. This was just like, I'm in my zone. I'm in my home, my dwelling. Like, you know, and that's why you hear kind of, you know, different angles of personality on that project. Like, I laugh on a couple projects, you know, I stumble on a couple joints, and I'm like, I'm gonna embrace those imperfections, because to me, that's what gives it personality, you know, and I'm gonna leave it like that. And in the past, for all the timeless truth stuff, I was just so mechanical and just like an engineer with all the words and it gotta land perfect, and if not, we'll do it 1,300 times just so I could get that word to sound right. And I was like, you know what? I might be overthinking this, man. Let me just be who I am, you know? And a lot of times there was also people in these studio sessions that I didn't even know. And it's like, I felt like musically I was reserving some of my creativity, whereas I'm in my crib, you know, like, let's just try some stuff out. Let's see what works, and let's build on it as we go. And that was the process for Soul Controller.
With all these beats that you had access to, why, when you do these 7 songs, why is it over when these songs are done?
Why is what over?
Like, how did you know the project was complete?
That's a
You know,
good
because we
question.
could, you know, sometimes you can keep going. You never know
And
how many
there were
songs.
more tracks. There were definitely more tracks. But to your point earlier, it's a refinement process, right? It's not just making 15 songs for the sport of having 15 songs. It's what is the best body of work that I could put together and contribute and put my name on and live the rest of my life proudly with. And it boiled down to those 7 songs, and I was super proud of it. You know, I felt like it was consistent, cohesive, and it showed a new side of me. It told a story that I wanted to tell, and yeah, it was a feeling. I knew it was it.
Let me ask you about the title track, right? It samples Rakim Allah, right? It samples the God, building on the supremacy of the mind, creating its own reality as it sees. It's really, literally, man is the sum of all of his thoughts, like James Allen's "As a Man Thinketh." You know what I mean? Which is for listeners, it's really, that was James Allen's analysis of the ancient Dhammapada. But you had a line that made me think here, right? And you said, "Paid dues to a game claimed bankrupt." You know, you said it's claimed, though. What do you think about the game, though? How far is it bankrupt? Is it totally bankrupt?
It is, man. It is very bankrupt, and the reason I said that was because of you know, internet sensations that, like Tekashi, right? Like I was looking at Tekashi and I was like, you know, I'm not gonna spend too much time critiquing or analyzing him, but I come from a very different school of thought where it was like, you have to pay dues, you know, to for me to be sitting in this chair and having this conversation with you is because I pay dues to a certain extent to get your respect, right? And I feel like that whole concept is it doesn't exist anymore. You know, you could falsify an image, just be a sensational character, and you're good, you know, and that's just inconsistent with what I believe and the way I carry myself out personally and musically. So I just felt like, yo, I paid dues to this game, and it was like the stock market crashed. Like I just lost it just plummeted, you know. Damn, what I put all this effort and investment into, but you know, I'm still good with all.
I
of
definitely see that. You know, as I add on to that, you know, I make up a lot of slang in my writing. I hashtags to explain stuff, but probably the most oft-used hashtag I've used is respect fake. You know, and it's like almost like you respect things that you don't have love for because they may be enemies. You have to be aware. So there's a difference between respect of caution and respect of love.
Yeah.
But it seems like they've merged now.
That's a great point.
You know, and this is why I'm always saying they respect fake, you know, when I'm always talking about that. And it's something that keyed me into the song because you talk about making your own way, but you also talk about how other people have made a way that bankrupts
Everything
the chance
we
of
believe
other
in.
people making a way
That's
that is
right.
that is righteous, you know?
Exactly.
And
Well
this
put.
becomes a difficulty, you know what I mean?
Well put.
And you know, for the listener, you know, we're thinking like, oh, look, it's just time of the truth. There's just bars, this, that. You've got to listen to these songs. You know, good hip hop music, especially in this era, because there's so much. You have to give it the time to listen to the actual lyrics. You have to take time to see the nuances and the differences in styles, because Soul Controller is emceed in a totally different way than we're used to when you duo.
Yes, sir.
You know, for the listener, because I didn't say this before, if you go back after this broadcast, listening to this, and you listen to Time of the Truth, and you never heard them before, and for me, seeing them live, I haven't seen a synergy like that. And I've written about this. I haven't seen a synergy like that since Smith and Wesson, because the way they know their material,
Yup.
you know, they know their material. So that, like, I've seen shows where, like, Steel is on stage and it looks like he's just gonna do that one by himself.
Yeah.
And then Tech will just come in
Pop
easily,
and
like, hey, you know, in the
seamless.
middle with a drink in his hand and just go.
Yeah.
And nothing is wrong and stuff. And these will be songs that aren't just from the first album. There'll be songs from other albums and stuff. There's just a synergy. And it's unfair to just say they have synergy because they're brothers and shit, you know? Because I'm a twin.
Oh,
And me and my brother don't have synergy
Yeah.
when we talk about issues and shit.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about things going, ooh, yeah, back and forth.
Right,
Like,
right.
We have
Nah.
no synergy when it comes to some shit like that. You know what I mean?
It's showmanship.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and there's such a perfection of the craft and stuff. But on this album, I hear you going, like, trying different styles. Soul Controller has a different tempo.
Yeah.
It has dives almost into, like, a spoken word.
Yeah. Stripped down.
You let words
just-
hang for a little bit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and that's new for me. You know, again, back to the refinement process. You know, I love that you brought that up because, you know, I feel like I have a mountain of clay in front of me for all these years, and I'm still chiseling to turn it into a beautiful sculpture. And I feel like it's gotten closest to that with this project, where it's just like, you know, I don't have to fill every bar with 1,000 syllables. You know, like I could let it breathe to get a point across more impactfully. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this was just me again, like understanding myself, my capabilities.
And you know, that's what's funny because a lot of listeners that are Timeless Truth fans, though, like there was one who said, no, it's not. It's a little bit different than the others. And I said, yeah, you got to listen to it a
supposed
little
to
bit.
be, yeah.
You know, you got to listen to it because when the type of MC you two are, we get addicted to the lack of space in the bar. You know, we kind of get
I
addicted to
know.
hearing that, you know?
I know.
And what happens is that when you hear other stuff, people won't give it the time. But they had some real insights. And there was another line I got to ask you about in
Yeah,
that
go for it.
song. You had said, where was it? You had said, war scars that you can't trust. Speak from experience, mouth shut, but you're hearing this. Now, in this, we see such a display of people's so-called experiences as if they're there to trust immediately. And a lot of these experiences, and I'm saying this for someone that's been in this thing so long, a lot of guys got old that were whack and got old and whack, and now they're veterans.
Wow.
You know, and now they're veteran legends, and you
yeah.
just suck, and you just been around a long time, you know?
Yeah.
You've been a long time appropriating, you've been a long time shitty, and now you're a legend in the game, you know? And, like, when you say, like, war scars that you can't trust, what did you mean by that? Because that's what I got out of it, and I know I got something totally different out of it than what you might have gotten.
I'm glad that it provoked that thought in your
Right,
mind.
right.
You know, for me, it was just like, I feel like people control their image so much today because of the tools and the social media platforms that we have, where it's like you could tell all the war stories on your feed as you want, and it's like I'm not gonna buy into that because you're saying it. You know what I mean? It's not just like something you could say and scars that you could show. Is like, did I live that with you? Did I see you experience that? No, I didn't. So I got to take that kind of at face value for what it is, you know, and not buy into everything and be that gullible.
Right. You know, it's a thing that resonates with me because covering hip hop music, the integrity and the principles of the individual are so demanded. We demand it, and I'm with that. I demand it out of the artist.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing my best to show that I have those principles. But what happens is as a writer and as a journalist of it, you're like, man, but how do we go prove this? I mean, am I going to go to Queensbridge and see
Right.
who Prodigy killed? Like,
Right.
they say Cormega sprayed this, but how am I going to go check that? Because, okay, I did that. Let's go to now, if I listen to a West Coast artist, I have to take a trip to the West Coast and
Right.
see who shot me and shit like that.
Right.
So it becomes extremely difficult to see the integrity of the individual, and that's why the talent and skill level has to be like that foundation that if that's not there, then we just quit on them.
That's super important, man. And that's why I followed that line up saying mouth shut, but you hearing this, because I feel like just through your posture, you know, you don't have to say a word. By the way I'm standing, my confidence, my aura, my presence, it should say what I'm about without me having to say or do all the explaining for myself.
There was I'm just gonna go through the songs here
Nah, go for it,
there
man.
were bars on all
I
these
appreciate
songs.
this, yeah.
There was a song called on Patina, right?
Yes, sir.
Which, by the way, I one thing I love about the album, I love when what I notice is word choices. You know, patina is not a choice, a different choice of word than a different type of color or something like that. So it's just a good word choice, and there's a lot of good word choices throughout this the project.
Yes, sir.
Right?
The
Throughout the
project. There you go.
project, right?
Yep, you got it.
I was gonna say EP, and I was like, fuck, right? But you had said on patina, you said steel that once kept me sharp, now rusted, but I outshine while they lack lustered, right? I love the lack of grammar on lackluster, right? We could
That
fuck
was
with
on
that. We
purpose.
could do
Yeah,
that.
We could do that.
We could do that.
Make it manageable. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is though, is that like it's almost like it was a dope line because like, yo, this also can apply, if it does, to like artists that you looked up to and now they're just not coming with it. They're not giving
Yeah.
you the same essence
Yeah.
in the music and stuff. How do you go from, because this is also some of me, I say I write art on art, but what if the art sucks?
Right.
Then I'm totally in the dumps. So I'm there like that. Like,
It's
I don't
uninspiring.
want to write about that.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
do
yeah.
I write about? I'm
Right.
what
You don't have the
so
content.
as an artist and an MC, like, how do you overcome that when everything has become lackluster? Like, where how do you sharpen yourself now? How
Yeah,
do
man. You know, man, that's another great question. Like, sometimes I get super inspired by whackness. You know, like there's,
Yeah.
and it's like a polar opposite extremes thing where it's like I could hear a super skillful MC and be like, wow, you know, I gotta go right, or I gotta sharpen up some darts. At the same time, I could see something that is extremely like just poor in content and in thought and in skill, and be like, that could put the battery in my back too. So I think the inspiration could come from, you know, both sides of the spectrum for me. But I think with that line specifically, again, back to something you were talking about, like seniority does not equal skill. You know, you could be in this game for 30 years, and just because you've been in it for 30 years doesn't make you a legend. That just means you might have been complacent. You just got a spot and you might be comfortable. And you know, I don't look at that as legends either. So like, I think as I've grown, as I've gained a sharper sense of myself and clarity as to who I am, I start to realize like I shouldn't maybe not listen to what that guy was saying so much. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if he really got me in his best interest based off of what he's telling me and where he is personally. You know what I mean? So
Gotcha.
that's probably the best way I could put it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that thought. Here's another one that was just, it's just a regular, it's just a battle bar, but I'm going way off with it, just as a springboard. But on Eyes Don't Lie, you said I black out on track, no Rachel Dolezal, right? And this is something I'm thinking about because your brother included would be in this too. You two are light-skinned Dominicans, right? And so we're coming from this idea of blackness. This culture is created by a diaspora of black. You know what I mean? And that was contested at one time. And being from this industry, every single magazine you could think of, I was there. The music, the culture being sold as an African American culture versus a culture of the black diaspora
Right.
is something that was always deliberately kept. It was even in 2005, I had where I said Puerto Ricans were co-creators in the pun piece, and they edited that out and said it was wrong.
Wow.
And of course, I had to sneak in there and get this shit back in. I don't know how I did it though, because that chain of command, it's like a
rigid.
it's like a car factory. You know,
Yeah,
it goes
yeah.
down the
Assembly
line,
line,
the
yeah.
assembly line, and you could lose it again if you go in there and sneak change. But when we talk about Dominicans in hip hop, and I'm coming, you know, being from a Dominican neighborhood, like for the last 10 years, being around Dominicans in hip hop, and from a country that is probably the most blackest country I could find that is deliberately Europeanized in their history.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys go against that completely. You know what I mean?
Right.
And look, your name is Super Bad Soulless. Like, you have that soul. You embrace that black soul. You know what I mean?
Facts,
And even the knowledge itself is something that has inspired certain lyrics and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
A lot.
So it's just a blanket question about this idea of doing black music that we belong making, but how does it resonate though with certain Dominicans in the Dominican community?
Man, first of all, it's undeniable that this is black culture, right? Like, I don't know what I would be trying to do if I was trying to like contest that in any capacity. But, you know, we come from families and just cultures that there's people as light skinned as me. And I have family members, you know, as black as Nat King, like Pun would say, you know, to use that reference earlier. But it's really about finding what resonates with you, what speaks to you personally, what do you identify with. Yo, hip hop is my culture. You know, I'm a New York City kid. I was born here. I'm from Queens. That said, I embrace my heritage, my roots as a Dominican man who came up in New York City. But I'm not gonna discount, you know, the culture that really raised me. But, you know, in looking at old footage and like B-boys and seeing the co-creation, like it was real. It's a people of color thing. It's the black and brown communities building this thing together. So yeah, it's something I respect and
you know, as a side note to the listener, you know, when I say this, it isn't just Latinos that were kept out of it though. If you were dark, you were African American. Puerto Ricans are dark as African American. If you were Jamaican, you're African American. If you were Haitian, you're African American. You know, so this became a thing. It was easier to peddle that as, you know, I've even seen scholars write about hip hop as being founded as an African American thing and denounce and deliberately downplay the Jamaican roots. And I'm like, wow, I mean, you're nuts now. Now you're just off the meter. But
erasing history.
One last song that I wrote about every song here. I'll probably write a whole piece on it.
Thank you.
But there's one last song because we talk about Dominicans and on leisure wear, sit and laugh. You sampled that Monty joint, that Beatnuts sampled.
Yeah.
Was it a homage to Beatnuts in some kind
Absolutely.
of way? Because
Absolutely.
when I heard that beat, I was like, oh yeah,
Yo,
you know,
man,
because
that's
that was the most oddest track on that Beatnuts album.
Let off a couple.
Yeah, let off a couple. And then you used it, and I was like, "Ooh, yeah, it's a homage." I took it as a homage.
Totally.
I was like,
and I spoke to Juju about the whole thing. You know what I mean? And shout out to Junkyard Juju. He shows us crazy love. Yeah. And
I love you guys on a Beatnuts track.
Yo, me too. Me too. Yeah. That's definitely gonna happen. But yeah, you know, I heard the track, and I was like, kind of intimidated. You know, there's certain things you just don't touch. But that was just calling me, and I was like, let me throw something at it and see what sticks, and I'm proud of what came of it.
Yeah, that's great, because I think that Beatnuts and particularly Juju don't get enough credit and stuff like that.
Not at all,
and,
man.
Crazy. You know, and me personally, that was probably my favorite piece in a commercial magazine that I did on a Beatnuts back in '99. That's another crazy story, because there's no
the Musical Massacre.
Yeah, and there's no Beatnuts story that's not crazy, but that needs like a whole show right there.
Yeah, that's another one.
But you know, last but not least, it has to do with something that you wrote as the theme in the clothing, a theme to this album, and you wrote "Own Your Own Narrative." And I just wanted to, because, you know, we read in your bio that you're advertising professional. I think, if I'm not wrong, you graduated from Baruch College,
That's
right?
That's correct. Yep.
I'm also a Baruch College alum. So, see,
salute.
for the listener, this shows you people that actually used the degree and people that used everything else in Baruch College. You know what I'm saying? I've never done anything with my business degree.
Wow.
But everything I've done in hip hop was using Baruch College facilities.
That's amazing.
I even used their funds to make magazines.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yo,
so
you,
I was on my own business, but a different way. You know what I mean?
Entrepreneur.
Yeah. So when you said own your own narrative, tell me about that, because I thought it was a powerful statement. You put it on the shirt, like inside there.
That's the inside of
the tag.
and
it was describing the project, the Soul Controller project. Tell me how you see that and why you put that.
Yeah, man. It's basically like we live in a day and age where you have to be clear on who you are. Right? Understand who you are so that you could tell your story. Because if not, somebody else is going to tell it for you, and they're going to do a disservice to who you are. And it was as simple as that. And, you know, again, this moment where I just hit 30 years old, right? And a lot of stuff is coming to me, like, you know, and I'm taking inventory of my past and my future, where I want to go. And I feel like I can't get there without truly knowing who I am at my core and where I want to go and where I belong. You know what I mean? So it was a matter of like, yo, I'm the captain of this ship. Nobody's going to do it for me. I know who I am. This is how I'm going to get there. I'm going to do it myself. You know, and I hope, you know, that resonated with people and inspired them to do the same. And I got to give a quick shout out to Combat Jack. Rest in peace.
Oh, definitely.
Because that was a big part of his mantra as well. Like he would encourage people to own your narrative and you know, that controlling aspect, the soul controller, it all just tied into just
Right.
telling your own
Yeah,
story.
yeah, and definitely remembered imperfection to combat Jack, though. In a short time, made himself one of the great journalists with the one key: integrity to the story.
That's right.
The integrity of the story. That's all he did. He didn't take schooling in this, though. There were technical faults in the way he was doing stuff, and nobody cared. He made it the most exciting podcast. You know what I mean? And salute to that brother. You know what I mean?
Yup.
Just amazing journalist.
Back to the Baruch days. I used to have a radio show at Baruch College. It was called Industry Shakedown Radio, and that's why we have.
What was it named after? The Bumpy's album?
Yeah,
the Bumpy
absolutely.
Knuckles album.
I'm
right?
a huge Freddie Fox fan.
Yeah. Oh man. Who,
Big.
by the way, his new album, that
I
Pop
haven't
Duke,
heard
is
it
banging.
yet. I'm sure.
Banger, yeah.
But I called the Industry Shakedown Radio, and I would have all my friends at the time. Mayhem come up and just rap. Action Bronson before he even had a beard, like just showcasing the music that I love and having dialogue with the people dialed in, just like we're doing right now. And I remember Combat Jack called in on an episode where I had Dallas Penn as my guest, and he's like, "Yo, Dallas, this internet radio is the future," and I still have that, and that internet radio became, what it is, and podcasting, and he
He's
saw it, man.
100% right.
He
yeah.
had the vision, and he built the
That's
empire.
real peace, man.
Yeah.
Yo, Solus, I want to thank you. You know,
you.
one of my favorite
Thank you.
MCs. If you don't just get the album, catch him live, because you're missing out. He's gonna be live at Highline Ballroom.
Yup.
Let me see. I got the details here.
September 26th.
Yeah. September 26th, Highline Ballroom. It's a Queens Get the Money show. Onyx Havoc, Big Noid, LES, right?
Yup.
And Super Bad Solus. So,
Yup.
you're going to hear him do these songs. He better do Wet Cement.
Yo, I
'cause
got
that-
you.
oh
I got you.
my
I got
goodness,
you. I
that's a
got
fucking
you.
track, though.
Video coming out.
You got to cue up Wet Cement right when you start them push-ups or that bench press right there. That's how you do
That's
it.
what it's for. That's exactly what it's
Pull-ups,
for.
whatever
man.
you do. Yeah.
Yup.
Right when he go.
boom.
Yeah, right when he
Yup.
goes in. But yo, go to superbadsolus.com. Right, it's superbadsolus.com.
Yup. And it's Solace, SOLACE. So a lot of people say Solace. That's the proper way to pronounce that, but I say Solace. I always mispronounced it, and I just kept it like that. So
Solus, and it makes it unique, though.
Yup.
So go there, get the project. It's dope. Get yourself the T-shirt. It's there because these guys are also originators in making their own clothes, though.
Yes,
This
sir.
is even before the Low Life line. They had the double T shirts and,
Yup,
the,
yup,
and
yup.
sweaters and
on polo
yeah,
t-shirts
and
too.
the flag joint that you had.
Yeah.
I thought it was the pole, and I looked closer and said, "Eso es dominicano,
That's the
coño."
Dior,
I was like, "Yeah,
You got a good eye.
yeah."
There's the
And
Dior flag
yeah.
in New York City.
Yeah. And I was like, "Wait a minute, really dope, man." So, yo, go get the project, and until next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. I'm your host, Sunez, aka Skill Illustrated Low, and as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast.
Never.
Peace.
Salute. Peace.
Work yourself in this mess. Work yourself about it. What you gonna do now, man? What you gonna do? That's what I'm curious about. Let's see how you gonna handle this. Yeah, I'm back, Lord. Dominican flag backboards, grab wars. Just go ahead, act laws, cause we humble. But we always down to rumble. Steady grip, never fumble. Make the biggest man in your whole clique crumble. Watch the big man. Crumble like a sugar cookie right from everybody, man. You gotta make a decision right now. It's eye to eye, man. How we gonna take this? Have faith, though, man. Pray to your God, whichever God that is. Maybe we got your back, maybe we don't. Man, we right here. We're gonna figure this out right now. See how it all play out, man. We'll just leave it like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, baby. De lo mío personal.
Yeah, mío personal.
Yeah. Llegamos, mamá huevazo.
Yeah, man, stamps on a passport, moving maps on a dashboard, pulling strings like a jam sport, trying to cash my raps and cop real estate. Skipped the freshman class and made the killer tape. Rock my family crest with the gold crown. 6 feet undergrounds when I slow down. Bring them timeless sounds like it's Motown. In control now, put it down for my hometown. It's for the dreamers, pushing beamers. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul like my rollie with patina. Graduated, class with the schemers. Now the grass greener, we live cleaner. I take my coffee black, no creamer. Sending this one out to the dreamers. One day pushing beamers. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul like my polo with patina. Graduated, class with the schemers. Now the grass greener, we live cleaner. I take my coffee black, no creamer. Sending this one out, yo. I keep taps on the Wally Hills, so they never wear my soul down. I'm Bobby Seale in the showdown. German quality reels for the go round. My words probably heal cause they profound. It be a sin to disrespect the veterans. That's like rocking the Timbs without the leather trim. Still rock a double T on my letterman. Over my heart to represent the brethren. Yelling free at last when we see the cash. Climbing out the mud till we see the grass. And won't stop till I cop the Paul Newman. Daytona 500 gold Cuban. A young Elon Musk with the musket. Bumping Bowie out in space, man dusted. Still that once kept me sharp, now rusted. But I outshine while they lackluster. It's for the dreamers, pushing beamers. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul like my rollie with patina. Graduated, class with the schemers. Now the grass greener, we live cleaner. I take my coffee black, no creamer. Sending this one out to the dreamers. One day pushing beamers. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul rock-a-rolly with patina. Old soul like my polo with patina. Graduated, class with the schemers. Now the grass greener, we live cleaner. I take my coffee black, no creamer. Sending this one out to my man J. May. God bless your life. God bless your life. My godson AJ. God bless your life. God bless your life. To my man Dan Rivera. God bless your life. God bless your life. To my peoples out in Queens. God bless your life. 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 God bless your life.
What intrigues me is you have style, clearly have style, and you clearly have your own sense of style is part of who you are and what you do. A guy who was a kind of, somehow knew the right thing.
I was a cool guy.
That's what I was asking. I was that better.
I was cool. Somehow, at this age, I'm not groping in the world, trying to be something. I know who I am. That's the greatest accomplishment I've had in my life. You ask me, what have you done? I'm happy inside myself. I'm happy with myself. My sense is that you can make your life be whatever you want it to be. You can succeed in whatever you want it to be in your life. You gotta believe who you are.